Welcome to this week's midweek check-in as we do exactly that. I get to check in on how you're doing and present to you what we talked about on Sunday. Just to, like I've stated before, the goal of these videos is it's meant to encourage you and just another place for you to engage. And, we're through conversations on Sundays. I have many of them and I very much enjoy it. Honestly, I enjoy that part the most about church is just being able to connect with people and hearing the positive influences that are coming out Sunday morning. So I think being able to extend that into the midweek really help us carry out and finish off the week strong, and then be ready to come back Sunday and feel fed, get fed, and be encouraged and be empowered and ready to take on the next week. Time moves on. So that's where we're at. This Sunday ended up being an extension of the week before, where we talked about near success and breaking through. I wanted to acknowledge, because as much as we were talking about success and succeeding and breakthrough and being in victory at all times, and that's where we want to be and where I believe we can be, right? I wanted to take a week and acknowledge failure, the concept of failing, because we're not perfect. We fail at things. I fail at things. Like it's a part of life. And when I have two sons, and when we try different things, as simple as tying a shoe to riding a bike to social interactions with their friends as they're beginning that process as a 10 and a 7-year-old, they fail at things, and they get frustrated, they get upset, they express themselves very instinctually, anger, crying, sadness, and I try to talk to them and help them work through failure. I don't want them to be afraid of failure. I want them to be able to face failure and process through it healthily. So we're adults in an adult world, right? So failure can be much more consequential, can carry much more hurt and pains. There's still simple failures. It's not like everything is the most weighted thing of all time, but the principles that we learned on Sunday can apply to many, many different areas in our life. The main verse that we looked at was out of Micah, chapter 7, verse 8, where it says, "Rejoice, don't rejoice," or excuse me, I had a little cough there. "Rejoice not against me, my enemy. When I fall, I will rise. When I sit in darkness, the Lord shall be my light." Depending on the translation, it'll read a little different. But basically, Micah is acknowledging the failure, right, in his life, but he's acknowledging and knowing that I'm going to rise again. And he even says why, because even though I'm in the darkness, the Lord will be my light. And was like the jumping board into what we talked about. I think when dealing with failure in our lives, one of the most important things is accepting the fact that we failed, and doing so with humility. We had a funny moment in Sunday morning service where I had forgotten to take communion. I had my worship pastor, Pastor Katie, next to me, was like, "Communion?" And I was like, I totally forgot, even though it was right in front of me. And you can go back and check the tapes. I had fun with it. But what was the first thing I did? I deflected to my sons. I'm serious. Where my sons had actually thrown me off this morning. Sorry, my son Isaac, because he had asked about BGMC. And he had said, "Is it BGMC?" And I said yes for some reason. So I got BGMC ready, even though it's not BGMC Sunday. And then after I got that all set up, I realized it was communion. So then I had to go take the BGMC stuff, go get the communion stuff ready, get that. So my brain was frazzled, right? And although that is absolutely what had happened in my brain, I still made the mistake. I still failed. And instead of accepting the failure, the mistake with humility, I immediately deflected to a 10-year-old. Now, if you watch just 30 seconds further, I absolutely, it was like, yeah, that's me. Like I said, I was teasing. But the fact of the matter is, I still did that. And it illustrates my first point to a comical degree, that when we fail, we need to acknowledge the failure with humility. Like that's the first step. Because like if we're failing at something, we failed at something, and we are deflecting, maybe a victim mentality where we're just unwilling to relinquish that. Maybe you're not even accepting even the idea that there's a failure there when there absolutely is upon self-reflection. You can't even get this whole process going. You can't even get to the conclusion where Micah says, I will rise. We can't get to that spot if we're basically kneecapping ourselves with our pride. So we need to acknowledge failure with humility, because that's where the restoration process begins. You don't hide your fall, and you go to God. You then, you can the confessing of that failure leads to cleansing, 1 John 1:9. Like, you can begin that process that way. And when you do that, and why it's important, and honestly, the thing that's going to help you going forward to be like, why do I need to do this? I don't like failure. It makes me feel bad, which, duh, I hate failing. I feel awful when I fail at things too. Why? Man, my phone is going off. Okay, sorry. Just want to make sure it wasn't important there for a sec. The thing that would help you and help convince you why the confession process of it, the accepting process of it, the humility process of it is so important, is that you need to understand that failure isn't final, especially when dealing with being a believer. Jesus Christ died on the cross for our sins and took all that stuff to the grave, the guilt, the shame, and really allowed this process to be restored, to be redeemed going forward. And man, that death is, you have to understand, death is a failure of mankind. Adam and Eve, when they failed in the garden, they invited sin, they invited death into our very DNA and chemistry. So, like, Jesus defeated death. Death failed at the foot of the cross. So we can absolutely deal with failure with humility and understanding that failure is not final. That even though I may have fallen in this area, even though I may have failed at this thing, that's not the final go. I can keep going. I can be restored. Proverbs 24:16 talks about how the righteous rise again. That it says righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. And really it's just trying to bring in the resilience through grace specifically, right? And we went and talked in Luke about Jesus interceding for the fallen. Talked about in Romans how God's gifts and callings are irrevocable. And honestly, all of that was to say that maybe you're in a time of failure where it's not like this one and done. You're dealing with the consequences, whatever that is. You can have 1,000 examples. Understanding that not only is the failure not final, but that mercy triumphs over judgment. Mercy triumphs over judgment. That's what the cross is. That all have fallen short of the glory of God. The punishment of sin is death. That's a final statement. But God's mercy at the cross with Jesus triumphs over judgment. So if you can understand that, when you come into the crossroads of failure, you would have, hopefully, a more likelihood of admitting failure with a humble spirit. And I think once we're there, that's like this, everything we said is just like step one. Like, it's kind of crazy, but I think that's the biggest part of this process, is beginning the process. Because once you start it, we're able to adapt, we're able to see, and God moves quickly. His Holy Spirit descends upon your soul, and you can really experience peace, joy, and love, and mercy, and everything, compassion, you name all the things, right? And I do think the other thing that gets in the people's way of people is that maybe they've accepted the fact they failed. Maybe they even understand that Jesus wants to restore us. We can get in the way of our own restoration because we won't embrace the power and the process of restoration, right? I mean, the process is returning to your first love, which is supposed to be Christ, right? To look at the scriptures, look at the principles, maybe go to someone with wisdom who's been through it before, whether it's a grandpa, a mom, a dad, a pastor, someone you trust, a friend, whatever that is, and begin to work on your weak areas. I talked on the pulpit about inviting accountability. To don't get to the point where accountability is thrust upon you, but rather you are the one that says, I can identify, I'm a full-grown adult with a brain that can look at my life objectively and go, I'm weak here. The devil tempts me in this way. Pick a vice, whatever that is, from as too much distraction of the TV to alcohol, or, it's your life. You can figure it out by looking at it inwardly and figuring it out. But you can, I think the spiritually mature people invite accountability. They go to someone they can trust and say, hey, this is where I'm weak, and I need you to help me. And that means calling me out. That means checking in on me. And I'm going to have to be the adult and allow you power to do those things over my life. It's a humbling experience to have someone come up to you and say, hey, we were both went to that wedding the other day, and you said you were done drinking, but you went and got a drink at the open bar. What the heck, man? And now the ball's in your court. Hey, get out. I didn't need that. There was only one time. Like, if you deny the accountability, then you're back. Now you're all the way back at the beginning. Inviting accountability is the embracing the process of restoration, and that can be it can be how you spend your money. I don't know. My point is, I could spend a 70,000 minute video explaining every vice or whatever, but evaluate your own life. I believe in you. If you need someone to talk to, you can come. We can give me a call, text. We'll set up a time and we can go through whatever specific thing you're going through. I'd love to help you in that way, but this is something. What's great about this message is that you can do this. You can figure it out. And not only can you invite accountability on the physical side, whether it's a brother, sister, friend, cohort, you can pray and invite the Holy Spirit to be that accountability. Accept the divine discipline of that over your life. And through all of that, walk in renewed obedience and begin the process of restoration. I really think that when we do this, we are quite literally being renewed in purpose. And I know that when I'm doing something, let's see, I'll think of a good example. If I'm trying something new, okay, let's just say I've never played basketball. I can think back to when I was a kid, when I first started playing, 4th grade, whatever that was. And, you're unsure. You're not, you shoot the basketball and you miss. And you're like, well, that's a failure. You failed at that. But, I didn't get mad that the hoop's too high or the ball's too big or someone tried to block the shot. Like, that's the step one. There's no acceptance of failure and humility. But then what happened? I asked my dad for help, and you have the coaches and you got teammates. And then what happens is you've accepted the process of restoration. And what happened is, in that process, I made a basketball in the hoop, and that built confidence. I got to see it working in my life, and I got a taste of what that is. And although it was only one, I wanted to make another one, and I wanted to keep playing, and I wanted to keep having fun. And through that, I got to move forward, have confidence, and that's the small example to help explain the principle. But when you begin the renewal process, the process of restoration, you're going to see that it working in your life. It's going to build confidence. And God, He's not going to just be like He's going to build in you a purpose for witnessing to others, your family, your workplace, your church, and it's meant not only to build you up, but others as well. Yeah, when talking about success and victory and succeeding, I did want to take this week and acknowledge failure, and that when we fail, the devil will try 100% to use guilt and shame to keep you from the process of restoration. Honestly, because we're imperfect, we're going to fail. And so the devil doesn't even need to cause us to fail necessarily. He can just wait for you to fail. I mean, think about it this way. If I was riding my bike as a child and I fell off my bike, which everyone who's rode a bike has done, okay? And if I fell off my bike in front of, right in front of my dad, who I love and cherish, and then I look up and I'm hurting and he looks at me and he points and laughs and says I'm awful at it and that you're going to fall, I'm going to fall again, and that everyone is going to hate me for it. And the best thing that you could do is just never ride the bike again. Guess what? I probably would have never got on the bike. So that the devil doesn't even necessarily need to make you fail. He just needs to sit by and wait for it to happen. However, if we have the ability to be like, hey, I failed. This is something I'm going to do. Here's my weak areas. I'm going to get back on this thing. I'm going to invite accountability, invite someone who knows how to ride a bike and help me do it. And all of a sudden, we've recognized the enemy. We've recognized where our failure is. We recognize a path to success. And now we're taking that path to restoration to succeed. I know, once again, that's a cute example, but it's meant to help you help explain the principle. And I truly believe that if we have a church, a movement of believers that are able to process failure, they are way more likely to succeed in the future, because we get better through failure if we process it healthily. You know, it's like we fail at something. If we do it unhealthily, it'll just make us worse. We'll get more hurt, more broken, more rigid, more bitter. But if we're processing through failure, we're becoming more flexible, more able, more wise, right? And more ready to kind of duck and weave with life. And I think that just equips the kingdom all the better. So that's what we talked about on Sunday. And if you missed it, I hope this is a nice little pick you up for the midweek. And I very much invite you to join us on Sunday. Got something fun cooking, and see what we'll talk about then. If you're just watching this video, please like and subscribe, as it helps with the visibility. You can get notifications yourself on when the next upload comes. It's usually gonna be Wednesday, Thursday when that happens. And then also you'll see the little cards here on the screen for our YouTube channel, as well as our I think what I like to do is, I think it's over here, I try to include the live stream from the Sunday that this video is applicable to. So, all right. Well, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you on Sunday. Goodbye.